Hello, Garland Nixon here. Let's talk about the state of the U.S. empire. Hello, Garland here, and I'm doing the best I can to set up a stream on Rumble. I don't know if it's working or not. If anybody's out there, if you can check my Rumble, I'm figuring it out. I guess I'm going to have to get somebody to work with me. The darn thing says waiting for stream. I don't know. Whatever. But I'm going to work on that. So let's talk about the important stuff. Who knows what I'm doing wrong here? Rumble doesn't seem to be happening, I don't think. I don't know. It ain't doing whatever it's doing. So let's keep going. What we're talking about here is the state of matter here in the U.S. empire, right? What's happening with the U.S. empire? Let me make sure I got everything right here. I'm doing and we're going to start from the inside out, and you will excuse me if I check to make sure. Yeah, everything's good. Okay. All right. Trying to set up Rumble. Not doing too good a job of it, but I'll get it figured out. All right. So let's do this. Let's talk about the state of the U.S. empire. But let's start politically, right? Let's start with politics here. Got to make sure my phone's not going to ring all over creation. I'd like to consider myself a political analyst, right? And the key to me to being a good political analyst is to try to be unbiased, right? Somebody says, get some nerd help. Yeah, I do need some nerd help. I do need somebody to help me figure out how the hell to set the Rumble stream up. But maybe somebody will email me, garlandin@gmail.com, and say, Garland, it's a piece of cake. I'll walk you through it because I don't have a clue how to do it. And I'm pretty nerdy and pretty good with computer stuff, tech stuff. But for some reason, this Rumble thing, I guess I haven't tried very much. I guess my first go at it. All right, so somebody send me an email and help me with get my Rumble stream going out of StreamYard. All right, let us move forward. Again, to me, one of the things I've always said about that is critical to me, it's important to me, two things. And those are both communication, right? To ensure that people understand what I'm saying. That's why at times I'll use analogies and things like that, right? Similes, metaphors, analogies. Why? Because I want to try to ensure that if I'm saying something, what's the hell's the point of me saying it if you don't understand what I'm saying? That's number one. And number two, for me to get the best understanding I can of things, which means that I can't be trapped by my own ideology. I can't be limited by my own biases. To understand they're there and to grasp them, to embrace my own biases, also to me means to understand that they are biases and they're not good or bad or right or wrong. So if I'm talking to you and figuring something out, what I need to do is to try to escape those things, to not to pretend like they don't exist, not to pretend like my biases aren't biases, but to accept that they're there and to say, okay, they're there. I'll hug them. I'll embrace them. Now it's time to move on, right? And so when I look at the state of politics in the United States, I got to start by, I think, evaluating them from the perspective of the incumbent party and the opposition party, rather right now at this point, for the purpose of this part of the discussion, rather than the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, right? The incumbent and the opposition party, taken into account. I know what people are going to already say, oh, they're the same party. We're going to get there. But let's start with the incumbent party and the opposition party, because it makes things a little bit clearer. And to see the contradiction, for instance, the U.S. empire and its minions try to pretend like, as an example, Alexei Navalny, a guy in Russia who has been convicted of criminality. And they've convinced people that he is a major opposition political opposition figure to Vladimir Putin. And since Vladimir Putin is evil, and we know politics in the US is all about good and evil, right? Since Putin is evil, he's going to try to stop this opposition figure who clearly would have a chance of winning if it weren't for Putin, right? So they put forward an absurd principle, an absurd position. And what do Americans don't know about Alexei Navalny? Well, they don't tell you that at his best, he got 2% of the vote. They don't tell you his politics. Joe Biden supports him, right? Loves him, but he's a far right-wing figure. Joe Biden comports to be the left. If that ain't a joke, I don't know what it is. And that Navalny was convicted along with his brother of embezzling like many hundreds of thousands of dollars from a French cosmetic company, right? So if you think that what is being done to Alexei Navalny is wrong, you need to address that French cosmetic company that he embezzled all of that money from and say, why did you go after him for embezzling money for you? You know, you're doing Putin's work. It's a French company, but Americans are not allowed to know any of that stuff. It's this guy's bad, good, Putin's bad, he's the opposition, and Putin is jailing his opposition. He's going after his opposition. He's using non-democratic means to maintain power. That's the storyline here, right? Well, let's go to the United States. There's an opposition party. Supposedly, there's an incumbent party, an opposition party based on the political rhetoric. In political fact, that's not the case, but in political rhetoric, for international political purposes, we'll say that there's an incumbent party and an opposition party. There's definitely an incumbent party and a party that's not in power. We'll say that. Currently, the opposition party leader, right, is leading in the polls. According to the polls, he's set to win, right? Now, if you look at the mainstream polls, which I don't put a lot of faith in, these are the same polls that in 2016 said Hillary Clinton was going to win Michigan over Bernie in the primaries, and she lost by 30 points, right? So come on, these polls are a fraud, right? They're part of the game. But according to the polls, Trump is up by 2 points nationally, which he's leading in every one of the battleground states, right? There's states that are going to go to the Republicans, you know that. There's states that are going to go to the Democrats, you know that. And then the battleground states, that's a group, I think it's about 16 states or something in it. But they're depending on how you do it, you can get it down to 6. But whatever the case may be, there's a bunch of states, Trump's leading every one of them, right? So this idea that he's only leading by 2 points nationally, nah, I don't buy it. Bottom line is he's leading in every battleground state, and he's going up, and Trump and Biden is losing ground. So it's pretty clear if the election was today or tomorrow, Trump would win. And what's happening now? So the opposition party leader, who right now is just, you know, he's got the wind at his back. The incumbent party has charged this guy with like 90 some charges. Some of them just absolutely preposterous. They literally charged Trump. They literally, in one of the cases, a person ran in New York and their platform was elect me and I'll get Trump. They literally ran on elect me and I'll indict Trump. They didn't say this particular crime he has committed and we have to go after him. They said, just indict me. I'm here to get Trump. Elect me so he wins. And what does Trump get charged with? This is what Trump gets charged with. Trump gets charged with, in New York City, in a real estate deal, overvaluing inflating the value of his real estate, okay, to get a loan from the bank to do other things with, right? Now, the banks didn't complain. This is a victimless crime, right? Did the banks complain? Nope. The bank said, hey, man, we gave him the loan. We were paid back on the loan. We made our money. We're happy. Did anybody involved in the purchase or sale of property say we got ripped off? Nope. Everybody's like, hey, man, I bought property. I sold property. I did what I had to do. I rented property. So you had a deal in which there was no victim. He inflated. Did the bank say, hey, we're upset because of the loan? Nope. They're like, hey, well, in fact, if you're a banker, the bigger the loan, the better. As long as you get paid back, you get more money back, right? So a bigger loan, if you're a banker, would you rather do a loan for 10 million? Or for 12.5. Well, that's greater interest. So the banks made out well. Trump needed the money and he needed to do whatever he did, for his business. He did it. He made out well. Whoever bought and sold the property, apparently they're not complaining. They made out well. But some technicality is Donald Trump or his corporations. You know, Trump didn't do it. If you own a company, you ain't just sitting there doing everything. The people in his company said, oh, this is really worth, $1 million. We'll make it worth $1,000,001. As if you ever sold a house. You ever know anybody that sold a house? What do? You're putting hardware floors in. You're looking around at comps in the area. You're doing everything. If your house is worth 400,000, you want to get 401. If it's worth 100,000, you want to get $100,001. You always want more. Everyone who sells a property or takes a loan out against the property wants the value of that property to be assessed as high as possible. That is perfectly normal business. Nobody's going to look at that and say, oh my God, I'd never do that. But at the end, was anybody hurt? No. Was there no victim? Did anybody complain? No complaints. Everything, you have a deal that went through smoothly. But in the context of the deal, you can look at it and say the property was worth $1 million, and he said it was worth $1,000,001, $1,000,005, $2 million. I don't care what the number was. In the end, they charged him with a crime where there is no victim, and everybody made out like a king in this particular deal. So what was it about? The person ran and said, if you elect me, I'll charge Trump. It's like a cop pulling somebody over. Hey, you weren't speeding, but let me take a look around. And they measure the tread in your tires. Well, by law, you're supposed to have 1/8 of an inch, and you only have 1/16 of an inch. Let me check your tag light. Oh, your tag light's out. Oh, you're, and they go on. Oh, let me pull the wheels and check the brakes. Oh, you don't have enough brake pad. And they go over everything. Here's what you know, that they didn't pull you over. And this is not about these violations, that there is some ulterior motive. Are they mad because you're dating their girlfriend? Are they mad because you're dating a girl they want to date? Are they mad because, they don't like you or something? Whatever it is, right? It ain't about the violation that they're articulating at the time. So when that's one of the, I could go on and on, but that's one of like 96 charges against Trump. In New York, they literally changed the law. You might not have known that. What did they do? They literally changed the law. They literally brought the New York legislature into session because this woman was claiming that Trump assaulted her 20, 30 years ago, whatever, grabbed her, right? But because the statute of limitations was over, she couldn't sue Trump. So they changed the law, and they said effectively, and she was one of the people petitioning them. So they came together in the legislature, they changed the law, and they said, you know what, we're going to open a 1-year window where anybody who was assaulted by someone sexually, we're going to reopen the statute of limitations so they can go after anyone who might have done that. And like 1 minute after 12, when the law changes, she immediately went in and filed and said, yay, this is great. They did a good thing. So the legislature of New York changed the law so they could go after the guy who is now leading in the polls and sued him. So they're suing him every way they can. They're choosing, and they're literally saying that he tried to thwart the election after the election, right? That after the election was over, he tried to thwart it because he said that he thought he was took. Now, he thought he was there was illegalities. Now, here's the thing about it. A recent poll showed that 30% of Americans believe that the 2020 election was illegitimate. Look, if you ask me, I don't really believe we have democracy. So you can ask me that for any election and I'll answer, I don't think we have a democracy. How the hell could you argue it was a democracy in 2016 when they stole it from Bernie, right? So to me, if you ask me that year after year, I'm going to say the same thing. But notwithstanding Garland's position on the lack of democracy in the United States, and this is important. People may say you're talking about Trump a long time. I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about the state of affairs in the U.S. empire. Okay, so basically what they're saying is when Trump said, I think I was robbed, and he got his lawyers together and he started acting on that what they're saying is this: Trump didn't really believe that he was robbed. He knew that everything was on the up and up. Therefore, since he knew that everything was on the up and up, then he was really trying to steal the election. But keep in mind something. Legally, I believe, and a lot of other people believe, that unless you can prove that Trump knew and that the election was completely on the up and up and didn't believe it, had no reason to believe that the election might have been crooked, Unless you can prove that, you don't really have a case. Because here's the fact of the matter. If Donald Trump were to say, hey, I think that I was robbed, right? Not only does he have a right to believe that, there is actually a process in place for him to challenge the election. In fact, a part of having a democracy, which we don't have, or a republic, which we don't have, or legal elections and reasonable elections, which we don't have, part of having that is you have to have a manner for people who lost to challenge the outcome, right? In fact, there are states wherein if the election is under a certain amount, for let's say the person wins by 2% or less, right? I'm just going to use that number, but there are states that would say if it's 2% or less, it triggers an automatic recount. In other words, the state wants to make sure that things are on the up and up, and if it's too close, people could be suspicious. We're going to do a recount, right? So there are protocols in place for a person who believes that there was a problem with the election to petition the government to address their concerns. So Trump had every right to say, I think I'm robbed, if he thought he was being robbed, and every right to utilize those methods to petition the government to look into that election if he thought that he was robbed, if he really believed it, like 30% of other Americans who believed it. Probably a greater percentage than that, because there are probably people like me who are very suspect of the elections, period, but I'm not going to narrow it down to any particular election because I just don't trust the whole system. And ever since they instituted those voting machines, I've been very concerned that they can easily be manipulated, which is a reasonable concern because it's been demonstrated that they can be easily manipulated. Okay. So to me, if you look at various factors, Trump's got a good argument. He's got an argument to say, here's one. I'll just give you one. If I'm Trump's team, I introduced this in court. December of 2019, right? December of 2019, the FBI picked up Hunter Biden's laptop, and they had it for almost a year. And come the 2020 election, the FBI had it. They knew it was valid. They knew what it was, no doubt. They'd done forensic checks on it. If they hadn't, then they were misfeasant, but they were malfeasant if they didn't do it. But okay, so they got Hunter Biden's laptop, and what do? They know it's real. They know it's not Russian propaganda. They got it. And what does the FBI do? They go to Twitter and social media and mainstream media. They go to all of these people and they say, oh, just wanted to let you know that Hunter Biden's, there's a story out there about Hunter Biden having a laptop and there being stuff on there that could implicate Joe Biden in wrongdoing. And that's all Russian disinformation. And if anybody tries to put that out, make sure that you censor it, and we'd be happy to help you censor it. And they did help them censor it, but they knew it was true. They knew it was true. They did this just before the election. And I remember reading an article that said 17% of voters that voted for Joe Biden said if they'd have known about Hunter Biden's laptop, it may have affected their vote. They didn't say it would. It may have affected their vote. Okay. Well, the reality is this. That's enough to win or lose. So if I'm Trump's people, I put that in and I say, my client thought he was robbed. Here's the evidence. I think he was robbed. This is illegal. They can't do that. The FBI stepped in, and the FBI did something that is illegal. Clearly, that was election interference. Clearly. So why wouldn't my client believe that he had been cheated when we have evidence right here of cheating? And I'd bring all kinds of stuff in that I could get. There was indisputable evidence that there was issues, and I would introduce all that, and I would say, hey, it's not that my client had to believe or not believe that he was cheated, but I'm introducing evidence that in fact think there was wrongdoing. So how can you say Donald Trump knew that there was no wrongdoing when I have just presented evidence of wrongdoing to the court? How could Donald Trump say there was no evidence? How can you say he knew there was no evidence of wrongdoing? I just gave you evidence of wrongdoing. So you got to throw the case out. That would be an angle that I would take if I'm defending Donald Trump, right? Not that he did or didn't believe it, but I can present evidence to show that it happened. So we don't even need to argue whether or not he believes it. Now you believe it, and you're on the jury, and now you know it, right? So that's the angle I would take. So the bottom line is this. based on what the FBI just said, what I just said that the FBI did, right? We just got 2 cases against Donald Trump, the opposition party who's leading, that make it pretty clear that the U.S. empire has decided that they're going to take over the election, and they don't really care what we think. That they've gone from trying to pretend as though the election was valid to they've gone away with the illusion. Hey, we're going to pretend that the elections are valid too. Nope, we're up to no good. We're up to no good, and so we're going to do what we got to do to make sure we maintain power. Right? I have made the argument recently, and I'm not going to back down from it, that there was a Third Reich and that this is the Fourth Reich. That the Third Reich was planning on keeping power no matter what, all over the world forever, killing as many people as they needed to do it, and that it was a very racist and ethno-fascism in the Third Reich. Well, I think if you look at the machinations of the U.S. empire right now, you will find a very, very strong alignment with that. I mean, they're trying to wipe out the Palestinians. That's an ethno-fascism. Think about the U.S. empire. Let's be honest, the state of the U.S. empire right now. On one hand, you got Ukraine, where the U.S. empire is funding and arming guys who are, they're unabashed. In fact, I would argue they're proud fascists, right? They're running around with the iconography of the Third Reich on, and the U.S. is protecting them, arming them. The U.S. literally helped to bring them to power in Ukraine. Before 2014, when the U.S. took over power, the ethno-fascists, right, they were a secondary power, not enough of them to control the government. And what happened? The U.S. comes in and overthrows the government, and all of a sudden incorporates them into the military. Ethno-fascists, IDAR and the infamous Azov and all that stuff. So, okay, at the same time, the U.S. is funding and arming and supporting in every way people who are goose-stepping Sieg Heil and Nazis. There's Israel. And if any of us say we don't support what Israel's doing, they call us goose-stepping Sieg Heil and Nazis. They call us anti-Semitic. Imagine that. Think about the contradiction here. For anyone who has a brain, you are literally arming Nazis and saying, yes, it's a terrible thing. We got to make sure that Nazis never again come to power, and because they'll kill all these other people that we are supporting, right? We're arming. So we're arming, supporting, and protecting Nazis. At the same time, over here, we're saying we have to protect these people from Nazis. Why? Because there's anti-Semitic people out here that hate Jews. Yeah, I guess they are. They're right over here. In the right hand, we got anti-Semitic people who hate Jews. In the left hand, we got people that we're protecting from anti-Semitic people who hate Jews. A great contradiction, isn't it? Which just goes to demonstrate, it's kind of what Bashar al-Assad said. United States, look, no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. Everyone knows in the Middle East, a lot of people around the world understand that the United States created and built ISIS. They first called it the Mujahideen during the 1970s and 80s in Afghanistan. That we supported the most crazy, horrible, vicious, brutal head choppers in the world, armed them. Then when that was over, along comes ISIS, and we're supporting and arming them, etc. Right? So we support them and arm them, and when it's necessary, when it serves our purpose, we tell our people we're fighting them. Right? We're arming and supporting Nazis in Ukraine, but over here we're arming and supporting people, and we say we've got to do that to fight Nazis and anti-Semitism. Then we say we're in the Middle East. Why? We've got to fight ISIS, and we're arming and supporting and clothing and feeding and protecting ISIS. We say, what are we doing in Ukraine? Why? We've got to stand up for their independence and their sovereignty. People just can't come walking into a country without permission and doing whatever they want to. Well, we can't have that. What a terrible thing. At the same time, the United States has illegal bases in Syria. And the Syrian government's like, leave. And the U.S. is like, nah, we just go in any country we want, stay wherever we want, as long as we want, because you can't stop us. The Iraqi government is saying, we want you out. The U.S. is like, yeah, no, we're not leaving. We're not leaving. So We're standing up for Ukraine, the government that we overthrew and inserted a Nazi-infested group of morons, suicidal clowns. We're standing up to them to protect their independence and sovereignty. And independence and sovereignty doesn't exist for the Muslim countries. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist for the Middle Eastern countries that have oil. New. So the U.S. empire is mired in its own contradictions. There was a time when it was a lot easier to push forward these contradictions because there was no internet. There were no people like me, Max Blumenthal and Jimmy Dore, and on and Syriana analysis, and on and on and on, and Andre Martianov and the Duran and all of these people who are going to go on and say what I'm saying. You guys are contradiction. You're a fraud. You're saying I'm doing one thing on the other. You're saying I'm doing A, and B, you're doing exactly the opposite, constantly, nonstop. So the state of one of the great states of the U.S. empire currently is that the contradictions now have been laid bare for the entire world. So much so that the U.S. empire has given up on trying to hide the contradictions. They're just doing them now, and that brings us to an obvious juncture. The juncture between what the U.S. is saying, is doing, right? Contradictions, right? Arming Nazis, but we got to protect the Jews from anti-Semites, and Israel, and etc. Right? Okay. The contradiction between what the U.S. is doing around the world that is blatantly and obviously, a fraud. It's a violent and lie, cheat, and steal, right? And between what the U.S. says, the rhetoric. So what is the rhetoric? Well, we've got to look out for the women, the LGBTQ people, the whoever, whatever the hell, right? We got to protect them in that country or this country or that country. We're protecting people. The rhetoric is that we stand for human rights. How's that working out? Ukraine, like all these Ukrainians did, they got to all die to protect their human rights. How's that look in Gaza right now? Everybody's looking at that saying you're genocidal maniacs. So where's your human rights argument? Oh, we're standing up for the Muslims in China, the Uyghurs. Really? What about the Muslims in actually Muslim countries? Oh yeah, screw them. We're going to kill them all. Right? Again, the contradiction, the big contradiction. And this is the struggle, the contradiction between what the U.S. is saying. Remember Joe Biden's Summit for Democracy and what they're doing. Hey, let's rob Bernie. Let's rob Trump. Let's rob now, literally, state by state in the Democratic primaries. I know of at least 4 states now, but others are trying to do it. They're taking everybody off the ballot but Joe Biden. So even other Democrats who are running, their name won't be on the ballot right now, at least in Florida, in Massachusetts, in Tennessee, and North Carolina. So Joe Biden has his Summit for Democracy. He's fighting for democracy all over the world, but he ain't practicing democracy not only in his own party. And of course, everybody knows about the history, how Joe Biden became president. And that is, it was clear Bernie was going to beat him in the primaries. And so the entire party came together. The leadership, the elite ruling class of the party came together, and they kicked Bernie aside and they won. They stole it. And if Bernie had won, they'd killed him. I mean, I'm sorry, that's probably not a positive thing to say, but you ain't got to have a brain if you don't realize that is so. And what difference does it make? Because the bottom line is this: at this point, they weren't going to let Bernie win because he wouldn't go along with everything. And Bernie's, ends up just being a simp for a total simp for imperialism anyway. So he's a worthless bastard. But I'm just saying, even a worthless bastard like Trump might do some things they don't like, and they ain't having that. Like Trump or Bernie. Excuse me, Bernie. Forgive me. I don't think much of Trump either. But, here's the bottom line. So the state of the biggest thing that the empire is dealing with now is that its contradictions are out in the open. While I'm doing this, let me just check. Yeah, I'm doing something wrong. It still says waiting for stream. Yeah, I ain't doing something right on Rumble. I tried. Somebody will help me at some point. At any rate, so the reality is this, you can fool all of the people, Abe Lincoln, right? You can fool all of the people some of the time and some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And right now, the empire's issue is they've recognized that they can't fool people anymore. And they've gone from, we can't fool people, so we're going to lie to them, to, we're just going to lie to people till we can't fool them, so we're going to censor them. See, that's what that's about. It went from let's lie to people and fool them, and people were buying it. And that once people start buying it during COVID, people started questioning the government, right? Especially that really caused people to question the government. And now people continue to question the government on foreign policy, on economic policy, on health policy. And they decided, well, okay, it's obvious right now the game is up. So what we will do is we will work on a massive censorship program. So this part of the state of the U.S. empire is that its contradictions are so profound, number one, right? So grand, so out in the open that they can't hide it anymore. There are so many alternative channels of information, right? Be it Rumble or Rockfin or Telegram or Twitter, whatever the heck, right? There are so many alternative means for people to gather information that they just can't keep that lid on that anymore. So what they've decided is we can't keep a lid on the information getting out. So we'll continue an ongoing war against those who attempt to share or discuss that information. That's what censorship is about. It's about a war on people who choose to share the information, right? It's a war on, a war on drugs, war on poverty, war on information. Well, they lost all the other ones. The war on drugs and poverty are lost, and they ain't doing so well in get war on information, as evidenced by the fact that I'm talking right now. And we're to come together, and there's 653 people right now who are looking at that saying, yeah, kind of, you're right. There is a war on information. And so now what do you have? They got problems such as Twitter. Well, right now, Elon Musk, it appears to me, is struggling against the empire, I would say, trying to do some pushback against censorship, I think. At the same time, he's engaged in censorship, which just goes to show he can only do but so much. I'm not trying to say he's good, bad, or indifferent. As far as I'm concerned, he's a billionaire, and I ain't standing up for him. I'm not pushing for him. And of course, I'm right now, I'm buying my time planning on legal action against YouTube, which I'm going to take at just the right time. But YouTube, Twitter. But the bottom line is this: I understand that probably to some extent, Elon Musk does want some level of open discussion. He is concerned about the machine, but he's also part of the machine, so he's locked in it. So he has a contradiction that he has to. You become the richest man in the world because of this machine. Now you got some issues with the machine, and you're struggling to stay inside of it and fight it at the same time. Yeah, best of luck there. But we will see what happens, right? Somebody says he's a company man. Exactly. So he's getting rich off the machine, getting unthinkably rich off the machine, and he's starting to look at the machine saying, man, this thing is ugly. Well, that's a contradiction, right? That's kind of like when I was in mainstream media, right? I was in mainstream media. Things were going well for me. I was really enjoying it, but I had to look myself in the mirror at some point and say, can I keep doing this? I don't agree with these people. And then I'm hosting shows and I'm reading from a teleprompter, and I'm like, I can't do this. I don't like reading from a teleprompter. I'm and hosting a show is where you want to get, right? Everybody in mainstream, when you're in mainstream media, you want to host a show. I'm hosting a show. New York City, Philly, all that area. I'm hosting a TV show. At that point, I'm moving. This is where you want to be. And I was where I think, in my opinion, Musk is, where he looked in the mirror and said, oh, man, I'm getting rich, but I don't like the way the machine I'm getting rich off. Well, I wasn't getting rich per se, but I was moving up the ladder of this machine. And I just, this is a horrible, ugly machine. I don't like it. I had to leave. And that's where Musk is. The difference is I could, because it was early enough. If I'd have waited till I'd have signed a $2.5 million contract, going to be a whole lot harder to leave after you sign some giant contract, isn't it? Had I been fortunate enough or unfortunate enough to get some giant contract when I was in mainstream media, that would have been what they needed, because now they got me. And how do you easily walk away from that? I left before I got the big contract. And Musk is there. He's got the big contract, SpaceX and everything, billions of dollars. He's caught. He's trapped. He's caught in a trap of his own making. But that doesn't change the state of the U.S. empire, the state of the U.S. He's just caught in the war. But the war is our rhetoric doesn't match our actions. And people are on to us. And we got to do something. They know they can't stop it, but they've got to have a constant war on it, a constant battle. The war on terror, the war on poverty. This is the war on an intellectual discussion involving critical thinking, right? I would say this. How's this? It's the war on critical thinking, right? Because critical thinking is all I'm talking about when I say I'm trying to be unbiased. It is, where does the data take me? Where's the information take me? Where does the historical context, all of the things I can put together to figure out what's going on? And if you start doing that with the US empire, in seconds you say, well, wait a minute, they're saying this, but they're doing this. It doesn't take long. So the US empire is at war with the world, right? We're at war with Russia and China and Iran and Venezuela, all corners of the world. We're over in Korea. We're in war with the entire world, because the world is saying we want things different. You're not being a good manager of empire. We don't like that. We want our freedom. We want off of this boat. And the US is saying to the entire world, 4% of the world's population. When Antony Blinken says the U.S.-led world order, what does he mean? He means that 4% of the world's population has a right to control the other 96%. And the other 96% ain't having it anymore. And so now the U.S. is at war. Now, here's the great irony. The U.S. is ruling elite is at war with the other 96%. Now, not the whole 96%, because the ruling elite of the rest of their empire are on board, right? The ruling elite of Europe is on board. Most of the people of Europe, a lot of the people of Europe and the people of the United States are on board, and they're feeling the pain. Now, there's a lot of idiots who are just like, hey, where's my blue and yellow flag? Oh, what do I need now? Oh, do I need to get a blue and white flag? What do I need to be told by leadership? Certainly, there are going to be those kind of idiots and puppets. But there are a lot of people within the empire who are now saying, it doesn't benefit me. I'm hurting. I don't like to hurt. So I'm not on board either. So the ruling elite of the US and Europe are at war with the rest of the world, saying, rest of the world, you got to do what we tell you. You don't want to, we're at war with you. And they're at war with the majority of the people in their own nations, because the majority of the people in their nations are now saying, we're hurting and we want something different and we want something better. Look at the polls. So now what we got is an isolated ruling elite, a ruling elite that is at war with the world and at war with the majority of the people in their own country at the same time. Can you get more isolated than that? Trying to figure out how they can deal with the elections. Right now, the U.S. empire is trying to say, how can we deal with the elections? Because it certainly appears like the people in America do not want to continue in the direction that we're going, and we can't let them stop us. They might elect somebody that won't go along with the game, and we can't have that, because this is not a democracy or a republic. This is a feudal empire. The ruling elite runs things, and I'm sorry, the illusion of democracy is good until it's not. So there we go. This is not, let me say this. It's not 4% of the people trying to control the other 96%, because most Americans just want a decent life. You ain't got to go around the world and take everybody else's stuff. They want to figure out how they can live and support their families and do whatever they're going to do. Right? They don't want wars and trouble. This is a tiny 0.0000000 and lots more zeros, 1% of the population saying we should control the entire world. That's including the people in their country who are restive, who are unhappy, who are hurting, who want change, and the people outside who are saying we want a fairer world order. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny group of people who are at war with everybody else. They're at war with modernity. They're at war with a changing world because other powers are rising. They're at war with their own people who are saying we want something different. They're at war with critical thinking. People who are saying, I want to consider what's going on here and evaluate if it's in my best interest and make decisions based on that. I want to evaluate what you tell me. And I want to take that and compare it to what you're doing and what's happening around me to see if that's all true. Right? No, you can't do that. You have to accept what I tell you to think, what I tell you to believe. I'm giving you a group of bad guys. U.S. empire's in trouble, deep trouble, going down in flames. Meanwhile, the state of the military is the same as the state of everything else. Decrepit, falling apart, breaking down, overpriced, underperforming. Look at the U.S. It's a pile of crap now. It's. Let me see if I can find something. I got to show you. The country. Let me find this. All right, let me find this guy. He's always got something. So let's say, let's just say, you're one of the people who you're like, hey, look, doggone it. These blue states are bad. And because of the Democrats, that's the people killed me with that. The blue states, look at California because of the Democrats, right? Now, for years, what we had heard was, well, 9 out of 10 of the poorest states in America are the red states. So it's always pretending that poverty in America is caused by one of the two parties. And what that does, it perpetrates the party system, the good guys versus the bad guys. The other party is causing poverty. It pretends like there's two economic systems in America. Well, the economic system in California is completely different from the economic system in the other parts of the world. It's one economic system, and it's a disaster. It's called neoliberalism. You can't divide the country up. You can divide it up with words, but not real. So let's take a look. Here's an example. Here we got Texas, a beautiful red state, right? This is what America, let's look at what America looks like today. Let's take a look of what America looks like today.
Going to Chicago, you said.
Yeah, I'm in Chicago. Y otras ciudades.
Miami for family. Miami for family. Nope. We're not in Mexico. We're not anywhere near Mexico. I'm outside one of our migrant processing centers in San Antonio, Texas. This was the first time I got an up-close look at how bad the immigrant crisis is in America now. I did not expect to see anything like this until days later. That's a lot. A lot of this part of San Antonio is pretty poor. They're not destitute or anything, but 1 in 8 people here makes less than 15 grand a year. That won't get you very far in life, especially in a booming part of Texas. Antonio. So we were just driving around, and we came across some sort of resource center that was overflowing with immigrants. They had all just arrived. It was kind of chaos. They were all just kind of standing around looking to try to get somewhere else in the country. A lot of them needed rides. It was like a bus just dropped them off here and said, here you go, get the hell away from the border.
There you go. So you've got this whole massive immigrant crisis going on, right? You've got that crap going on. Meanwhile, let me find something else to look at. Let's look at this.
Unhappiest place in the country. I don't know how you determine if people are really happy. You'd have to ask the whole city about how they feel, and I'm sure you'd get a different answer every time. But a website thinks it knows. Somebody ran a bunch of numbers on things that could be considered happy, and they measured the results. They took into account how much money people made and how long they lived and what the living conditions are like. And then they added up all the data and made a list. And Birmingham, Alabama came in dead last. The crime is atrocious here, like fifth worst dangerous neighborhood in the country bad. The murder rate in Birmingham is 10 times the national average. And people here think they can just do whatever they want because the cops are underfunded. And
so there we go. We're looking at, let's find some more. Let's look at some more. This guy's always all over. Let's take a look around California. That's always good. California is the place you want to be. Look at that. That's America today. This is the country we live in. You want to know the state of the U.S. empire. This is a country who they're trying to decide $60 billion for Ukraine, 20, 30, 15, 17, however many $billion for Europe. For Israel, many billions of dollars for Taiwan, right? We got to deal with all of these things. And look at this country. Look across the street. You see that? This is America today. I just showed you what it looked like in Birmingham, Alabama, crime-ridden hellhole. That's a red. Oh no, it's the Republicans' fault. Those darn Republicans, look at what they're doing. Oh man, they're really screwing things up, right? You go to the Democratic Party, and what are you going to get? You're going to get the same thing. This is California. It's a friggin' disaster from one end to the other. There you go. Nothing to see here. This is how people are living now in America. This is a country that has $60 billion.
see, this whole thing is like a grid, and there's roads.
There we go. Let's look a little bit more about California. Look at that. Everything closed down. A bunch of empty shops. That was COVID, right? The lockdowns caused it. That's it right now. Look, beautiful palm trees. It's California. A hellhole. A disaster. There's Monterey, and you got piers, and people that can afford boats and things like that. Whoa, what do you know? Downtown San Diego. Homeless, empty lots, people living in tents in horror and poverty. San Diego. That used to be a place where it's like, man, San Diego, there's the money. I have a friend that lives in La Jolla. You go there, there's golf courses, there's money, all this kind of crap, right? And look at this place. This is Long Beach, the LBC. That's where Snoop's from, right? What do you know? Look at that. Everywhere you go, a beautiful, beautiful area. Oh, but you're always going to find homeless people living there. Trash. Businesses closed down. It's good old Skid Row. That's always good. Look at that. This is California. This is Los Angeles right here. Birmingham, Alabama. You can go there. You can go to Austin, Texas. You can find this. You can go to St. Petersburg, Florida. You can find this. God knows, don't go to Philadelphia. You don't want to go there. You're going to find this. Red state, blue state, me state, you state. The Democrats are going to say, look at the poverty in Mississippi. The Republicans are going to say, look at the poverty in California. And I'm going to say, look at the poverty in the U.S. empire. How does this country, how do the people who run this country argue about whether to give $100 billion, $60 billion, $40 billion to Ukraine, to Taiwan, to wherever they're going to give it, as this country is now nothing but an open air homeless, gigantic homeless hellhole. That's it. And see, here's the thing. You'll notice there's cars parked there. You know why there's cars parked there? I came from the West Coast recently. You know why there's cars parked there? Because there are people who live in those tents who have a job. There are people who live in those tents who drive to work every day, who live in their cars, who drive to work every day because they make enough money to own a car. But because the cost of living is so high, they don't make enough money to put a roof over their heads. That's America. You can have enough money to buy a car and things like that, but putting a roof over your head ain't happening. Look at that shopping center; everything closed down. San Bernardino, I've been there. Bombay, California, on and on. This guy goes from place to place, and what's he see? Same thing. America. This is the state of the U.S. empire. In case you were wondering what the U.S. empire looked like, up close and personal. There you go. Hey, Tostios, yummy, yummy, yummy. What a disaster. Filthy, broken down, impoverished, destitute, hopeless. That's the United States. But you know what, gang? You got to choose, man, because there's two parties and you got to decide which party you want. Now, at the same time, the United States is an absolute friggin' disaster here, right? At the same time, it's a disaster here. They're committing genocide. They are they got a war going on in Ukraine where over 500,000 Ukrainians have lost their lives, over 500,000 Ukrainians, and probably 3 times that many injured, where they pretty much wiped out the gene pool in Ukraine. Pretty much wiped it out. And they have some people in charge of Ukraine that's screaming, we still got people left in the gene pool, man. And they're literally going around grabbing people off the street, beating them, grabbing people out of bars, grabbing people anywhere they can get them, going on buses and subways, grabbing guys older than me. Those poor bastards. I've looked at some of these Ukrainian soldiers, gray hair everywhere, some forlorn look. They look worse than the homeless people who are living in these tents. They look physically and mentally more broken than the homeless people who are living in these tents. Because I'll say this, at least they ain't got a shrapnel raining down on them, 2,500-pound bombs raining down on them 24 hours a day. So, I mean, yeah, you're living in a homeless shelter, but, you know, I'll put it like this. It's a homeless shelter minus the artillery. And if you look at it, I've seen these videos where there's these trenches that the Ukrainian soldiers are living in, but the trenches are like half full of water. Oh, by the way, it's ice freezing cold. So you're in a trench up to your knees in water and muck and mud, ducking artillery all day and running out of food and ammunition. That ain't no way to spend your holidays, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what Ukraine is. And the United States position is, don't stop. No, no, no. It would help the Russians if we stop. Let's keep going. That's the state of the rhetoric of the U.S. empire, of the people that says we're going around the world to do good. Meanwhile, what's going on in Gaza? A genocide, a locked in enclosed camp, raining down bombs on civilians, and they cut off their water, and they cut off their food, and they cut off their medicine, and they attack their hospitals. And the U.S. is like, we're there to protect the Israeli people and stop Hamas. But really, all you're doing is genocide. That's the state of the U.S. empire. And people like me and you are looking at that and saying, you know, you ain't gaslighting us. We know what we see. This is not, I don't care what you call it. It's not a democracy. It is not a republic. It's none of that. It is a feudal imperialist order. It is a totalitarian state. Well, here's my evidence that it's a totalitarian state. The biggest fight right now by the machine, which includes the media, what is their biggest fight to control the outcome of the election? That's their biggest fight. Their fight now, their war right now is against the American people. Their war against the American people is basically like this. We have screwed up so bad. We have made your lives so miserable. We have lied to you so blatantly that you ain't buying it anymore. to a point where people are looking at it saying, if I had to choose between Biden and Trump, I think I'll choose Trump. I know people are saying that, black people who literally tell me, I can't stand Trump. He's a piece of crap, blah, blah, blah. Who you voting for? Oh, yeah, I vote for Trump. That hell with that name. I had somebody say to me, literally say to me, I said, well, if you had to vote for Trump, who would it be? Oh, that ain't even a question. Get out of here. That's how stupid is that? Of course I'd vote for Trump. This is a black person telling me that, who's been a Democrat their whole life. But they're like, come on. Really? You think I'm voting for these mutts? Right? Blinken and Biden. Have you looked at these guys? You know, this is not much of an option. That's where we are. Now, as for me, I'll probably write in, you know, the ghost of Abraham Lincoln or something. That's who I am. But I'm just saying, maybe I'll write in Garland Nixon. Nixon 2024, tan, rested, and ready, for God's sake. It doesn't make any difference who I vote, who I write in or anything else, because they got machines, man. They got machines. I guess now the setup is to go after Trump and say, Trump said that he didn't trust the election, therefore he's got to go to jail, right? That's the setup. And then after the 2024 election, after who knows, you know, what kind of machinations happen, when the rest of us say, you know, perhaps Trump had something there. Perhaps maybe we should question the outcome of the elections. Then they can go after anybody that doesn't. You see what I'm saying? You use the empire's lawfare against Trump and say, we had to go after him because when he questioned the integrity of the election, that was the issue with the election. It wasn't what happened during the election that was any trouble at all. It was that he questioned the integrity of the election is the real problem. That way, after 2024, when everybody says, geez, the polls said Biden was going to lose by 99.1%, and he won by 99.1%. What the hell's going on here? When you say that, they go, oh. Questioning the integrity of the election, are you, buddy? Hey, guys, grab him, take him away. There he is. We're going to charge you with several felonies. We're going to give you 20 years. We'll teach you. So they're setting up an environment where whoever questions the integrity of the election will be liable to legal action. So they're just shut our mouths up preemptively. You can see what happened to Trump when he questioned the election, the integrity of the election. Do you want that to happen to you? So meanwhile, what they've got left here is this. They've got two small parts of the electorate that are the brainwashed, you know, the actual brainwashed cult members, right? I've been saying for a while, these two parties are brainwashed cults, and they ain't two parties, but they got people left. I've talked to friends about it who are like, they know people, you know, who are like, we shake our heads, and they're like lifelong Democrats, and they'll tell you about Trump. Yeah, Trump's terrible. He's horrible. He's the worst. And all their discussion is, we've got to, and it has become their discussion. We got to vote. Why? Because if we don't, Trump will become president. The problem they got is they're not able to scare. Only the small group, the small close-knit group of their cult members are really afraid of Trump anymore, right? The Republican Party, they got a group of people that all they got to do, tell them literally that Joe Biden is the left. If you think Joe Biden is some kind of left, I don't know what to tell you. Joe Biden ain't the left. Joe Biden ain't the right. Joe Biden's a totalitarian fascist. You got to understand about fascism. Fascism borrows from all ideologies. It borrows its rhetoric from all ideologies. Fascism will pretend to be the left. It'll pretend to be the right. See, here's what it does. What fascism does is it what's the word? It redefines the right and redefines the left, right? It redefines these things. So if I say, well, I understand the traditional left. The traditional left is pro-labor, right? Pro-organized labor. The traditional left is anti-war. The traditional left is very apprehensive of the power of corporations, right? And I could go on and on and on and on like that. Then Joe Biden says, I'm the left. Well, how do you feel about war? All for it. How do you feel about corporations? Love them. They should be in charge of everything. All of the things that traditional left you ask about, Joe Biden is completely 100% against it, right? But you can ask the things the traditional right are in favor of, and most of those things he's against. But what he does is, they do is they redefine the left. And here's the left now. If you're for trans, things like that, then that's the left. Something to do with immigration, that's the left, right? So they redefine the left as cultural issues. So now you really legitimately have people saying, yes, the left is concerned with trans bathroom. That's the only thing they care about. If you redefine the left away from the traditional view of class politics, economic class, things of that nature, then yeah, you've redefined the left. If you redefine what it is to be a white person, you can say Garland. But what's a white person? That's a person with brown skin, curly hair, and weird names like Garland. Well, then Garland Nixon's a white guy. That's all you got to do. Redefine something, and you can decide what it is, right? So Biden et al. Redefines the left into this is the trans issues. It's whatever the hell. How many boosters have you taken or whatever? Now that's the left. Now you can ignore all of the issues of economic class. Then he redefines the right as being something else and says the right's evil. Why? Because it's this, this, this. He redefines the right. He redefines the left. That's what fascism does, right? And it is a totalitarian control method of control. It is a way of justifying expansive warmongering, theft of resources internationally, all these terrible things, but they just redefined it and call it the left or hide behind it, or call it the right and hide behind it, right? Somebody tell me that there's much of a difference between Nikki Haley and Hillary Clinton. Find one. Nikki Haley, find something they disagree on, really. Not much. Some silly cultural issue that's not going to be changed or whatever. Nikki Haley is the right and Hillary Clinton's the left. Now, don't get me wrong. Hillary Clinton hates everybody on the left. Anybody to the left of her, she despises them. Nikki Haley, and oh, by the way, and anybody to the right of her, she despises them. Nikki Haley, anybody to the left of her, she despises them. Anybody to the right of her, she despises them. They are the same person. We're now in a place where the machine could run fascist warmonger Hillary Clinton against fascist warmonger Nikki Haley and tell us this is the right versus the left. That's the state of the U.S. empire. They have so redefined politics that they can put these two people together and pretend like they're running against each other. That's the game plan now. If you look back, Obama versus McCain, they're both a couple of warmongers. I would say that Obama was a little more, it was like Bud Light, Neocon and Neocon Light. Both of them are Budweiser. So it was a little lighter version. Obama was a little lighter version. I would argue he wasn't as much of a knuckle dragger as McCain, no question, right? So, I mean, would I say there's a difference between Obama and McCain? I would, to be quite frank. But, and here's one. I mean, I'm not an Obama fan, but here's one. When they overthrew the government of Ukraine, the neocon said to Obama, let's arm Ukraine to the teeth. And Obama said, I ain't doing that because, number one, Putin will always have the Russians will always have escalatory dominance in the region. And I don't want to ignite this thing. And it'll always be very critical to Russia, but it'll never be critical to us. But it was critical thinking. It was, for all I think bad about Obama, that was not wrong. McCain would have never done that. He'd have just armed us and armed them and tried to drag them into a war within 6 months, right? So, is there a difference between Obama and McCain? Yes, there were some differences, right? But here's what I'll say: but Obama was still no prize. Don't get me wrong. But my point being is this: so now they've gotten to a point where they're even pissed at Obama, and he was a friggin' neocon overthrowing country after, but he wasn't far enough. Look at Trump. Difference between Trump and Biden. Biden and that flock of neocons wants to go after the big countries. They want to go after Russia and China. Trump doesn't want to go after Russia and China. He wants to kick around the little ones. Hey, let's go after Venezuela and Iran and Cuba or anybody that he thinks. He wouldn't even attack Iran because they're too big. He's like, no, that's too big. That's going to be too much trouble, right? So Trump is more like a small order neocon. We'll go after the little guys. We can't beat up the big guys, so we'll beat up as many of the little ones as we can. And we used to have a saying in law enforcement when I ran investigations, and it was this: you're never going to get the smart ones, so you got to get as many of the stupid ones as you can to make up for it, right? And that's Trump. We're never going to get the big guys, so let's grab as many of the little countries as we can, and that way we'll still be an empire. You know, it's kind of like the revolutionary argument to war, right? And that is 1,000 small victories equal one big victory. That's the way the resistance forces generally fight major empires, and that's why they usually win. You know, Vietnam, 1,000 small victories equals one big one, right? And Trump is, if I throw over a dozen little teeny countries that I can actually throw over, that equals one big one. So he's no prize. He just don't want to go run headlong into nuclear war. But at any rate, but that's the state of the empire. It's discussing which neocon is in power, which neocon group is in power. And might I add, it is a complete and absolute disdain for the working class. One thing I'll say about the Biden people, see, and that those neocons and Hillary people, and this is another thing that people pick up about Trump. This is not a pro-Trump or an anti-Trump thing. This is reality as I see it. Oftentimes, people detect a condescension from the ruling elite if you're working class, right? And people are like, they don't like us, they think we're stupid, blah, blah, blah. People can pick it up that the ruling elite doesn't like poor people and working class people, can't stand them, right? And when Biden and these people, Nikki Haley, whoever are out there, it's clear, it's very easy to pick up that they can't stand us, right? And this is something that I think is important. People don't get that feeling with Trump, right? That's a reality. That's a reality. They get a feeling with Biden and the rest of these people that they're looking down their nose at the working class, that they don't like the working class, that they feel that we're stupid, that they don't feel like we don't have a right to make any decisions, that we're nobody, that we should shut up and sit down and do what we're told, right? And that they just don't like us, that they see us as an annoyance, right? Here's the truth. People don't get that feeling with Trump. Because Trump speaks their language, because Trump says things that the ruling class elite doesn't like, and because the ruling elite go after him. And see, what they don't understand is when people feel like, oh, you hate us, but Trump doesn't hate us. And then the ruling elite goes after Trump and they say, oh, I was right, because I know you hate us. And if you're going after him, that means that he don't hate us, that he really is on our side. Now, he ain't on our side. Don't get me wrong. I don't feel that any of them are, but I'm just giving you the picture right now that the ruling elite doesn't understand that they're creating a dynamic to make Trump stronger, to make Trump more attractive. Let's say they were to throw Trump in jail. Oh, then it would be a blowout, I think. If they throw, because see, here's their plan. They charge Trump and then they say, well, you know, Trump is still hanging in there. Initially, they wanted to say Trump has been charged and the polls have gone down, but the polls went up. So now they want to say Trump has been charged, and as soon as he's found guilty of anything, the polls are going to drop. So they're going to have to find him guilty of something, right? So they find him guilty, and they're waiting. They're like, yes, he's going to be found guilty, and then the polls are going to drop, and then it's Nikki Haley versus Biden or Gavin Newsom. Our evil work is done. They're going to find Trump guilty of something, and when they do, then as soon as they find him guilty of something, they're going to look at the polls and they're going to start screaming, even if it's not true, which it won't be, that the polls are dropping because Trump's been found guilty. And all of the blue cult will all start saying, that's it, Trump's done. We found him guilty. Our evil work is done. The truth is, when they find Trump guilty of something, it will cement to a lot of people that, yeah, Trump is the right guy. They hate him so bad, they want to put him in jail. People who will say, I want dramatic change. I don't want a little bit change. I want major change. I want a complete reversal. I want, as Annalena Baerbock would call it, I want to do a 360. Now, we'd say we want a 180, but Annalena Baerbock, you know, being the genius that she is, called it a 360. But you get my point. The more they go after Trump, when they lock him up, when he's going to be like a hero. He's going to come across like Imran Khan in Pakistan, where they came in the U.S. empire. What they do in Pakistan? They had Imran Khan thrown out of office and then had him locked up. They did a attempt on his life, all of those things. And you better damn well be sure that if Imran Khan could run right now in Pakistan, he'd win in a blowout. That's why he can't run right now, because he'd win in a blowout, right? But that's the deal here. What they do abroad is what they do here. So now they're trying to take Trump out, and they're in their own foolishness, are creating an environment where people are going to think that Trump is the answer simply because they're trying to take Trump out. Trump ain't the answer. None of them are the answer. There's no answer. You know where the answer are? It's with us. The answer is with the people. The answer is if the people determine we're going to fight back, we're not going to participate. What would happen? Yeah, let me ask you this. Think about this. Sitting back, relaxing again. What happens? Let me just give you a scenario. The scenario is they throw Trump in jail, they lock him up, they rub him out, whatever the hell they do. Trump's out of the picture, right? And all the Trump, 70 some odd million Trump supporters, let's say 25, 30 million of them, 20, 10 million of them say, you guys have gone too far this time. We're not paying taxes. We're not going to pay a dime in taxes. We're not paying state taxes. We're not paying federal taxes. We're not paying any taxes. We're not paying anything you tell us to do. Okay. What are they going to do? Let's say it's 10 million. Can they prosecute 10 million people for taxes? Can they do that? Do you see, you have certain rights if they go after you for taxes. You can appeal. You can do all of these things in the process, right? They go after you, you have to pay your taxes. And if you just send something in, I'm not paying them. If not, you'll be prosecuted. Well, you're going to have to prosecute me. Now they got to prosecute 10 million people. How long do you think? The courts are already up to their ears. And if you go file a lawsuit, you may be a year getting into court right now without any of that. So now they're going to prosecute 10 million people in federal court. Every one of them can drag this thing out for a year or two. That's 10 million years, as I check it, of court work, right? What it would do is it would completely seize up. It would, if 10 million people, probably more, said we ain't going to pay taxes, it would seize up the IRS. The IRS wouldn't be able to go after them, right? It would seize up the court system. Could the courts go after it? And what's going to happen when people start filing lawsuits against all of these people start filing federal lawsuits saying, whatever they're going to say about the election, you'll basically, what you will do is freeze and seize the federal court system at that point. So now the IRS is seized up because 10 million, 20 million people just say we ain't paying taxes. And so the IRS has to send them the stuff out. Things have to come back. They have to look in. 10 million letters got to go out. 10 million. It says you got to pay us. 10 million responses have to come back. So they got to send to 10 million people to say you haven't paid your taxes. You need to do this, this, this. And really, they got 10 million responses that they got to answer. And 10 million people send back and say, no, I want to appeal. Okay, let's set up 10 million appeals. We're going to look into it. You're going to be audited. What are you going to do? 10 million audits? 10 million people say, I don't owe any taxes. How are you going to? You understand the point I'm getting at? You're creating an environment where if enough people have had it with the system and say, we're not going to participate anymore. We're not playing anymore. You're going to want us. You got to come get us. You want to lock us all up. You want to put us all. Now, let me ask you this. Let's just say for the sake of argument that they said, you know what, we're going to do it this way. Sweeping everybody who hasn't paid taxes as of, let's give a date, October 1st. You're going to go to jail. As of October 1st, if you haven't paid taxes, turn yourself in, you're going to be charged with a crime. Fair enough. 10 million people show up at the police stations, at the court. 10 million on October 1st. Okay, yep, take us away. 10 million people. You've got a federal court here. They got 1 million people. Federal court there, 1.5 million people. How long would it take a federal court to process or whatever, some federal jurisdictional office? They get 100,000 people show up, just 100,000 in this particular jurisdiction. How long would it take them to process 100,000 people? It's not physically possible. So the real issue with the U.S. empire is it's moving towards a time when the number of people who reject the system gets to a point where they realize they can easily overwhelm the system. That's where we're going. The system at some point will be overwhelmed. And I think this 2024 election, the machinations that's being used by the fascist empire, by the Fourth Reich, are to a level where now they're creating the dynamics where they're going to get overrun. And I don't mean overrun and that people are going to be charging with their weapons into the White House. I mean overrun in that people are going to say, I'm not going to pay taxes. I'm not going to pay this. I'm not going to do this. And the numbers are going to be so high that there's going to be no way for them to deal with it. If you got a country and the people stop accepting the rule, the legitimacy of the ruling elite to rule, so much so that they say, we're not going to follow your orders anymore. What do you have? Do you still have a country? What do you have at that point? You've got a failed state. So I think the United States is moving towards a failed state. Look at this. People won't join the military. What the U.S. is like, think about this. The U.S. is like, we're threatening China. We're threatening everybody around the world. We're going to start, but you got a military and people won't join. And let me ask you this. The U.S. starts a war with Iran, starts a war with whatever the hell all over the Middle East, right? And we ain't got enough soldiers to do it. We just don't. We're losing soldiers. But the U.S. says, we need more volunteers. They ain't getting more volunteers. The U.S. says, here's what we're going to do. We're at war with everybody, right? Biden team started a war on behalf of their genocidal agents. Okay, we're going to draft people so that you can go fight on behalf of Israel. We're going to have a giant draft now because we're at war, and we're going to draft all these young people. We're going to put you on a boat. You're going to go over there, and you're going to slaughter people on behalf of Israel. The same young people that were in the street screaming and yelling, saying no. The same young people who can't pay their college loans. The same young people who can't get a decent job and who lost everything during COVID, lockdowns, whatever. And you're going to say to them, okay, we got a war going on behalf of Israel. Time to draft. See, the U.S. empire has a huge problem. How can they have a draft? People ain't gonna work. It's one thing if everybody's united. Yes, we've got to stop the hordes of whatever country that is. Yeah, we got to fight back against the Nazis or whoever they tell you. We're drafting, right? But now, when people are furious against the government, furious, in the same way that you're going to have people that say, I refuse to participate in paying taxes, you're going to have people that say, I refuse to participate in being drafted. More so. The largest group of people who are in opposition to the U.S. inside are people under 30, the people that you're planning on drafting and sending over there to die for Israel. They ain't going. What happens to a government, to a ruling elite, when they say to the people, you're being drafted, you're going to war, and the people say no? What happens when they say do something and the people say, no, we're not going to do it? The government has lost its legitimacy. So that's where we are. We're on the verge. We're on the edge of a government that's lost all legitimacy. Doggone it, I tried for all I could. So I don't know what the hell's going on. Maybe Rumble, I'll see in a little bit. Maybe it went, maybe it didn't. But at any rate, thanks a lot, you all. Certainly appreciate it. Let's look and see what everybody has to say. Do we have any super chats? All right, let's go. Let's start here. Sparky says, every time anyone that says Israel is our only friend in the Middle East, I can't help but think that before Israel, we had no enemies in the Middle East. John Shanahan, right. Thanks a lot. Soberano, Brazil. Awesome. What else do we have? Raphael, Germany wants to go to war with Russia. Can you please help us understand what in the hell is wrong with the neocons and neolibs? Are they all crazy? When you say Germany wants to go into war with Russia, the German government. But let's face it, they recently said that they're going to put a tank brigade in Slovakia or something, but they don't have the tanks and they can't get it there until 2027 or something. They may want to go to war with Russia. They got nothing. They got no weapons. They're going broke. That's the least of our problems. Germany has nothing, and the least of their problems is going to war with somebody else. The country's falling apart. It's falling into poverty. It's going nowhere. Don't worry about Germany going to war with Russia. Germany is at war with Germany. And the German people are going to tear that country apart when they actually wake up, realize what the hell's going on. In the world, materialism, credit, finance is a performance-enhancing drug. As the world's dealer, U.S. can't hop off the juice. It's lost its industry, family values, constitution, and can't do rehab. Yeah, so, yeah, you're right. credit financing, because let's face it, the U.S. economic system is all about credit. The people are up to their ears in credit. Government's up to its ears in credit. The corporations are up to their ears in credit. It's all about debt. But you know the question people don't ask? Debt to whom? It's all about debt. The country's falling apart because of debt. But yeah, but just talk about who owns that debt. Nixon Door 24. Thanks a lot, Sparky. Wouldn't that be a pair? Sparky says, Nikki's a screeching hack. Yeah, she's done. The idea. It's hilarious to watch the system pretend as though Nikki Haley has a chance. That is so hilarious. Sparky says, people complain Biden ordered U.S. military attack on Yemen without the checking with Congress, but Biden didn't order the attack. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron did, and he's not obligated to the U.S. Congress. It doesn't make it. Biden didn't order anything. Biden does not have the authority to order anything. He's an idiot. He's done. All right, let's look at Rockfin. Okay, we got somebody here saying, Eleanor Johnson and David Buteller. Thanks a lot, you all. Thank you very much. Certainly appreciate that. All right. I don't know what the hell's going on with Rumble, but I'll figure it out, or somebody who understands StreamYard will help me out. garlandin@gmail.com if you know how, if you can help me out how to get StreamYard over to Rumble, because apparently I don't know. All right, thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks a lot, guys and girls, and since I'm in the US, the 14 other genders that I can't name, a myriad of genders, all of these genders. I really thought there were 2, but apparently there's a couple dozen. And more to be named all the time. We're never going to run out of genders. Thanks a lot, everybody. Don't forget, as always, rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. Become a member there in case they throw me off of YouTube. And of course, you can be a free member, or you can join for $14.99 a month, and you can be help strengthen the channel. Patreon.com, to get PayPal. You understand that. Buy me a coffee is always great. You go in there, it says buy Garland a coffee, $5. How many? 1. Whatever number, 5, 3, 10, you name it. And then you now have the option on Buy Me a Coffee of doing it like Patreon and saying, I want to be a monthly subscriber. I'll buy Garland a monthly coffee. So that's great. And of course, you see my stuff up there for Cash App. So thanks a lot. Anyway, you can help the channel. Appreciate it. If you can't, the one way you can help the channel is if somebody can tell me how the hell to stream this thing to Rumble. Thanks a lot, everybody. I'm out.